Croeso pawb and welcome to the Critic's Choice PSN sale. Great news, I found some really cool games in this sale that haven't been on a good discount in years, and I mean years. So there's some really great deals in this sale. So if you like the sound of finding some really cool games and saving a lot of money, then you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe and then you won't miss another good deal again. You're welcome here anytime. Okay, this sale ends on the 12th of February, so that'll be the last day to pick up these deals. Let's look at the games. First up, we have a legendary FPS, BioShock The Collection. It was released in 2016, so it's 9 years old, but it was older than that really, and it's on an 80% discount for the price of £8.99, which is a pretty good deal considering you're getting 3 full AAA games, and one of them's a legendary iconic one as well, so that's pretty good. And all of these games include all of their DLC, and they're the remastered versions as well, so you're getting the best versions of the game with all of the content included, which is really great. In the first game, you get to explore the derelict city of Rapture. Deep below the ocean waves, what was once a haven for society's greatest minds is now a monster-infested ruin, with your only hope for survival being its lost technology and hidden past. The second game is set 8 years after the first game, where you play as a fearsome prototype Big Daddy, trying to rescue his missing little sister, while using new abilities to fight both old and new enemies within Rapture and the surrounding ocean floor. And in the third and final game, you get to pay your debts by traveling to the flying city of Columbia, high among the clouds, to rescue an imprisoned woman who has the mysterious ability to tear at the fabric of reality itself, before she is used to warp the future of America. Now, this series is pretty legendary. The first game was iconic and historic. It was massive, especially on PC, and it was hailed as not only a graphical showcase, but with a really cool story and really cool gameplay. It was just generally a really good quality game that people really loved and got invested in. Now, the second game people were really hyped for, and it didn't live up to that hype. Now, all the dust has settled, and people kind of look back on it as not a bad game. It may not be as good as the first, but in general, it's a pretty decent game. And the third one was pretty controversial, not because of the gameplay or the story quality or anything like that, but more because it involved themes of racism, which people were overblown with in my opinion. It's historical, it's part of the time period, so if you're not a snowflake in an oven, you'll be fine. It's a really good game. It's just a shame a lot of the discussion was about the themes of the story, rather than the actual content and quality of the game. Either way though, if you're a fan of first-person shooters, but you like story-based single-player ones more than the online competitive stuff, then this is a really good trilogy. The first game in particular is worth the money alone, and the second and third game are really good high-quality AAA games. They may not be as iconic as the first one, but they are AAA games, and they're pretty good. So if you're looking for a cool narrative and a really good first-person shooter, especially with good mechanics, the DNA splice is pretty cool. It allows you to customize your character and mold the abilities around your gameplay style. So it'll give you a lot of diversity in how you can play the game, which is really cool. So if you like cool game mechanics, cool story, and first-person shooters, definitely check this out, especially if you've never heard of them. The first one's iconic for a reason, and you'll probably love it if you've never heard of it before. It's an amazing game, in a really good trilogy, at a great price. Why not check them out? And hey, if you've never played an FPS before, then I wouldn't recommend starting here. You're getting 3 games, which is a lot of game for your money, but that's a lot of games you're not going to play if you're not interested. You're probably better off starting with one of the other ones instead. It'll be cheaper for you to just buy one, and then at least you haven't wasted a lot of money if you don't like them. But hey, there's a lot of choice in this genre, so just keep up with the videos and you'll have a lot of options to pick from. So don't worry, there'll be plenty more for you to choose from in future videos instead. Dead Rising 4 Frank's Big Package is our next game. It was released in 2017, so it's 8 years old, and it's on an 80% discount for the price of £8.99, which is pretty good, as it includes all of the DLC, bonus content, and exclusive items for a total of 3 full expansions, Capcom Heroes mode, Street Fighter and My Bloody Valentine outfit packs, and 5 weapons as well. So again, the complete version of the game with all of the extra content included, which is really cool. In this third-person action game, you're trapped in Willamette, Colorado, which is the site of the first zombie outbreak, where you get to play as Frank West again, fighting zombies and the evil corporation Obscurus, who are looking for the secret to create smart zombies. Now, this series was pretty huge back in the day. It was mainly known for just being a lot of fun. It's got some crazy humour, and a unique mechanic where the whole game's on a timer, so you literally play and the timer's counting down, and you have to do certain things within a certain time, or you miss out on them and you'd have to play the game again to try again. It's a really cool idea with a lot of cool action and gameplay, and it's got a really good weapon system where you can combine a lot of things. It's one of those annoying systems where they break, so you make weapons and they break and you have to keep making more, but the combination system and the quirky weapons you can make are so fun that you don't mind so much. You could do things like, gaffer tape knives to a boxing glove. Fun things like that everyone's wanted to do when you're 12. So if you like zombie games, especially ones with cool action and a sense of humour, then you'll probably really like this. The series kind of dipped off as it went on, but this is still a pretty good game. Why not take a look at this? It might just be the funnest thing you've played in ages. And hey, if you've never played a third-person action game before, then I wouldn't recommend starting here. It's a really fun one with a good sense of humour, but the older ones are cheaper, and this game's not that cheap yet. So you're probably better off starting with one of the other games from the same series, or picking up a completely different game instead. But either way, you'll have a lot to choose from, so why not stick around, and then you won't miss out when there's more games like this on sale. I absolutely love the next series, Dead Space. It was released in 2023, so it's only 2 years old, but the original game is much older than that really, and it's on a 75% discount for the price of $17.49, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal considering it's a PS5 exclusive and not that old, but I'm sure it'll be cheaper in the future as well. In this survival horror, a maintenance team arrives to repair the Ishimuru spaceship, but the team soon finds something horrifying aboard as they are attacked by monsters and trapped aboard themselves, and now they must work together to survive and escape this nightmare alive. Now, back in the day, there was a load of big survival horror franchises, namely things like Resident Evil and stuff like that. This was one of the bigger ones around the Xbox 360, PS3 era, and it was legendary. Now, survival horror is not really my thing. Horror's not my sort of genre. So I don't play a lot of these sorts of games, even though I'm very familiar with them because my friends play them and I've seen other people play them as well. But this series, I like sci-fi games, and the combat in this is very strategic. You use engineering tools as well as normal weaponry, and when you fight the monsters, the main tactic is to cut them up rather than kill them outright because they're very resilient, so you're much better off cutting off their arms and legs and then finishing them off. It's more efficient and it's the way to play the game. That whole tactical shooting experience I loved because it's a skill-based gameplay system and I loved it, absolutely enjoyed it. And the fact that it was sci-fi and set on spaceships and stuff I really liked as well. Now again, survival horror is not my thing, but I don't hate it, and considering I loved everything else in this game, I gave it a try and I loved it. I played Dead Space 1 and 2 back on PS3 and they were two of my favourite games. They're probably my favourite survival horror series of all time, and this remake was huge when it came out. People were hyped for it and it really delivered. It didn't mess with the game too much, it just made a remake of it and it did a really good job. So if you're into survival horror games like Resident Evil or those sorts of games and you've never played Dead Space, then you could definitely go back and play the older ones, or you could pick up this remaster. Either way, they deserve being looked at. They're AAA good quality games and you won't regret it, I promise. I love these games, and considering I don't like the genre, I think that's a pretty good recommendation. So if you like the sound of it, why not check it out? It's a great game from a great series. And hey, if you've never played a survival horror before, then I wouldn't recommend starting here because it's quite expensive. You're much better off starting with one of the older games or an older franchise. You can pick up a load of them cheaper than this, and it's much better value for money. You can always come back to this when it's on a better sale. But don't worry, if you keep watching the videos, you won't miss them when they're on sale next. We have a racing game next, F124. It was released in 2024, obviously, so it's only 1 year old, and it's on an 85% discount for the price of £10.49, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal considering it's only a year old. And this version includes the PS4 and PS5 version, so you don't have to worry about which one you're getting because you get both, which is really cool. This racing game features a new career mode, including 2-player career mode as well, which is great if you like playing with mates. And it has a new dynamic handling system as well, and a number of new challenges and season events based around the racing season, which may be gone now because it's past that season. And it also includes 22-player online multiplayer, which should be still active because it's not that old. Although don't bet on it, you never know with these games. Now, in general, I don't play a lot of racing games, and Formula 1 is definitely the ones I don't play. Although I really appreciate the strategy of the sport, it's not a game that excites me. But hey, if you're into Formula 1 games, this is the officially licensed one, which has all of the official licensed stuff in it, and all of the official racetracks and all of that. So if you're a big fan of it and you want a modern one, this is a pretty good deal. It's still pretty new, and it's well reviewed, and it's got a lot of really cool new features that should add value to the franchise. So if you're a fan of F1 and you wanted to check it out, why not take a look at this game? It seems like a pretty good deal at the moment. And hey, if you've never played a racing game before, then I wouldn't recommend starting here. It's pretty much only a sort of game you'd pick up if you're an F1 fan, and if you're not, don't worry, there's plenty more racing games with a load of different variations to choose from, and they're usually much cheaper than this as well. So check out the rest of this sale, or come back and watch more videos, and then you won't miss more racing games when they're on sale in the future. Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD Remaster is our next game. It was released in 2015, so it's 7 years old, but the originals were on PS2, so they're a bit older than that really. And they're on a 60% discount for the price of £9.99, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal considering you're getting 2 AAA games for the price of one. As this version includes Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2. Both of the games are remastered, and it features all versions of the soundtracks as well, so you're getting the best versions of the games with all versions of the games included, which is really cool. These are both JRPGs, and in the first game you play as Star Blitzball player Tidus, who joins a summoner named Yuna on a quest to save the world of Spira from an endless cycle of destruction wrought by the colossal menace known as Sin. And in the sequel, which is set 2 years after the Eternal Calm, and follows Yuna and her friends as they become sphere hunters on a quest to find the answers to an ancient mystery. Now, Final Fantasy in general is a legendary series, but there are peaks within the series that are pivotal, and 10 was one of them. It was a big release on PS2, and it set the standard again for JRPGs, with production values and quality, and story as well. It's an epic, amazing game from the Final Fantasy series, and because it's remastered and it's a more modern one, it's aged better than some of the older ones. So if you're someone that wants to try Final Fantasy but you don't want to go and play the older ones because the gameplay mechanics may put you off, then you might want to start here. It's a really good game with the sequel for a pretty good price as well. It's not usually this price, and they don't discount Final Fantasy games much in general. So if you're a fan of JRPG games and you want to try these out, it's a really good deal and you're getting good quality for your money. These games will last you a long time and they're epically good. So why not check them out if you like the sound of that? I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun if you give them a chance. And if you've never played a JRPG before, then you could start here if you want. It's good value for 2 games and they're from a legendary franchise, so you know you're getting quality for your money. But you can get some indie ones cheaper, so you do have some choices. If you're really interested by the Final Fantasy games in particular, then this is a modern enough game that you're getting a good experience, and you're getting 2 for the price of 1, and they're one of the peaks within the franchise. But if you're not sure, or you're not that hooked on Final Fantasy, there's plenty of options at this price or lower, in AAA and legendary franchises as well, so you have a huge amount to choose from. Unless you're really interested in Final Fantasy, you'll have so many to pick from, you don't really have to worry about it. There'll be plenty more to choose from in future videos instead. God Eater 3 is our next game. It was released in 2019, so it's 6 years old, and it's on an 86% discount for the price of £6.99, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal, especially for an anime game. They're usually pretty pricey. In this action hunter game, which is basically a monster hunter sort of game, you get to fight with the God Eater Elite Squad on a mission to defeat the giant monsters called Aragami to gather materials from them to research. It features new god arcs, new abilities, and fearsome new threats to fight when compared to the older games. So if you've played the older games and you're looking for the newer one, then it's on a pretty good deal right now. But if you've never played one before, there is a series of them, and you can pick up the other ones cheaper as well. So if you played Monster Hunter and you really like that, then you might really be interested in these games. Generally speaking, outside of Monster Hunter, there's not a massive amount of game franchises around you can play. Although there is a free one called Dauntless, which I played for a while and actually really liked it. It may not be as AAA and as polished as Monster Hunter, but it's not bad for free. So you can check that out as well if you want to see what the genre's like for free. All in all though, if you're a fan of anime games and you like the Monster Hunter series and you're looking for something a bit different, then you might want to check this out. It's definitely a bit different, it's reviewed really well, and all in all it seems like a pretty good game in a very niche genre where there's not a lot of options. So if you're interested, why not take a look? It might be worth your time if you give it a chance. And hey, if you've never played an action hunter game before, then I'm not sure I'd recommend starting here. Monster Hunter is the big franchise, and there's a lot of games in that. Some of the older games are really cheap, and even the newer ones are getting older now, so they'll be on a good discount going forward. So you will have options. But if you're into anime and you wanted to try a Monster Hunter style game, then you should definitely check this out. It's a decent game at a decent price. But if not, you will have other options going forward, so you don't need to rush into it if you're not sure. I love this series. Hotline Miami Collection. It was released in 2017, so it was 8 years old, and it's on a 75% discount for the low price of £3.99, which is pretty good, as this collection includes both games. Just be careful because there's 2 bundles you can pick up, and one of them only includes the PS4 games, whereas the other one includes the PS4 and PS5 games. So if you're buying them on a PS4, you probably want to go to the PSN website, or on a PS5 to buy them, where you can access the PS5 bundle that has both versions, because you might as well have the extra versions if they're free, and then you can play them on PS5 as well, with any improvements that brings. Just make sure you're aware which bundle you're picking up. These games are both 2D twitch shooters, set in an alternate 1989 Miami, where you play as an anti-hero on a murderous rampage against the shady underworld, guided by mysterious messages on your answering machine. Now, back in the day, I got the first game free on PSN, and it was on PS3, so you got the Vita version for free as well. And I completed it on Vita. It was one of my favourite games on Vita. I absolutely loved it. And because the levels were quite short and addictive, I played it a lot on Vita. It was really good to dip in and out of on a train or something like that. All in all, it's a really good tactical top-down 2D action game, where you can die in one hit, but so can everyone else in the game. You can pick up any weapon dropped by your enemies, so it's basically like a John Wick simulator with more melee, where you run into a building and go room to room clearing the place, killing people with guns, melee, all sorts of violent and brutal ways. It's a lot of fun, it's really addictive, the story is a bit meh, but that's not really what you're here for, and you get 2 games for a really good price. So if you want a really cool 2D action game, there's nothing really like this. It's unique and it's amazing. Trust me, it's better than the screenshots make it sound. You have to try it to really understand. But if you're into 2D action games, definitely check this out. You'll have a lot of fun with it if you give it a chance. And hey, if you've never played a 2D twitch shooter, then I'm not surprised, because there's not a lot of games like this, and this is the pinnacle. You could definitely start here. You're getting 2 really good games for a low price, and they're really great games. So if you're interested at all, definitely check them out. But if not, don't worry, there'll be plenty more games for you to choose from in future videos instead. We have a unique game next, Kamiwaza Way of the Thief. It was released in 22, so it's 3 years old, but the original game is much older than that really, and it's on a 75% discount for the price of £8.74, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal, as this version is a remastered version of the original PS2 game, so you do get a modernized version of it. It's not just a PS2 game ported to modern consoles, which is good, at least they've done that. In this stealth thief game, after witnessing murder, you escape with a surviving child, vowing to reform your ways and raise her as your own daughter, but years later after she falls ill, you are forced to return to your old life of crime to pay for her medicine. Now, this game has really good reviews, and it's pretty niche. I don't know a lot about it, which is pretty surprising because I was around in the PS2 era, so I'm pretty familiar with most games from then. It kinda looks like a cross between Tenchu, which is an amazing stealth series, and a unique mix of thieving gameplay, which seems really cool. And considering it's got a pretty good story with a branching storyline as well, so it does change depending on how you play and what morality you pick with your character and how you behave. That's a pretty good way to run a story. Back in the old days, they used to do a better job, and when they say branching story, they probably meant it back then. So if you're interested in stealth games, this is a very unique game with a pretty cool story, and the branching story is just a bit of a bonus. It's a very unique hidden gem, I think. Definitely check it out. I think it's a diamond in the rough, and I think a lot of people won't even know it exists either, which is a shame. It looks pretty cool. And hey, if you've never played a stealth thief game before, then you don't have a lot of options. You have the modern thief games, which are pretty not well received, but are really cheap. You've got the older thief games, which are beloved legendary games and almost impossible to find these days outside of PC. And then you have games like this, which are very niche and very unique. So, if this is your sort of thing, why not take a look at it? It's very different, but if this is your sort of thing, I think you'll have a lot of fun. If not, you might have some other options, but they're going to be very rare, and they're probably going to be indie games more than anything else. But don't worry, there's plenty more games from other genres, so if you're not too hooked on this, don't worry about it. There's plenty more games for you to choose from instead. Our next game is Katamari Damacy Reroll. It was released in 2020, so it's 5 years old, although the original game was much older than that really, and it's on a 75% discount for the price of £6.24, which is pretty decent, especially for a niche Japanese game. They're usually pretty expensive. And this edition is remastered in full HD, so you're getting the best version of the game, which is really cool. In this game, when the King of the Cosmos accidentally destroys the stars, he orders his pint-sized son, the Prince, to restore them the only way he knows how, by rolling up everything into a huge ball, including rubbish, people and skyscrapers. Yeah, this sounds Looney Tunes, but that's kinda like a lot of Japanese games. They're really weird stories, but the gameplay's really unique and really fun, and that's all that matters with most Japanese games. They're all about unique experiences, and they're pretty cool and quirky, especially if you're bored of the same old humdrum games. You can have some really cool and unique experience with Japanese games, and this is why this game is so popular. It was a massive hit back in the day, and that's why they re-released it, and it's still got a good following these days. It's pretty unique and different, but it's a fun game nonetheless, and it even has 2-player local multiplayer as well, which is cool. I wish more games had multiplayer built in. It's a thing they miss these days, and it's a shame really. especially when the consoles make you pay for online multiplayer. But anyway, if you're into old games, especially Japanese games, or games that are very unique, with a unique gameplay mechanic, then you'll have a lot of fun with this. It's very unique and quirky, and you'll have a lot of fun if you like this sort of game. You might want to give it a chance. It might be the most fun thing you've played in ages. And hey, if you've never played a quirky Japanese game before, then you could definitely start here. It's a really good game and it's at a pretty good price. In this genre, it's pretty legendary, and that's saying a lot because most of these games are very niche and don't have a big audience, but this did back in the day. It broke out because of its quality. People love it now because of that. So if you're interested in this sort of quirky game, why not check it out? It's a lot of fun and well worth taking a look at. We have a VR game next, Killing Floor Incursion. It was released in 2018, so it's 5 years old, and it's on a 75% discount for the low price of £3.99, which is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and a pretty good deal, especially for a VR game from a big franchise like this. This is a VR first-person shooter where move controllers are required, so if you don't have them you can't play it, which is really good because gunplay is a lot more fun with move controllers. Obviously that means it's a PSVR 1 game, so it won't work on PSVR 2. Now, this game was made especially for VR from the ground up, and it has a story-driven campaign that lets you uncover the Horzine's true intentions as you battle horrible monsters with an arsenal of varied weaponry. It features co-op, hold-out endless mode, and melee weapons as well, which is really cool. There's not a lot of really big AAA franchise VR games around, and Killing Floor is a pretty big franchise and is pretty popular. Having a standalone campaign is really cool because VR is a niche market, so relying on multiplayer would be a bit of a stretch, but this game doesn't. So if you're into really violent first-person shooter VR games, then you should definitely check this out. It's a really good quality action FPS, and you can play it with your mates as well, so if you've both got a copy, then you can have a lot of fun together, which will be really cool. So if you've got a PSVR 1 and you're looking for another good quality shooter, then why not take a look at this one? And hey, if you've never played a VR FPS before, then I'm not sure I'd recommend starting here. It is pretty gory and violent, so if you don't like really gratuitous gore or sort of horror-y enemies, then you're not going to enjoy this. You'll be better off starting one of the more mainstream ones instead. But don't worry, there's plenty of them around, so you'll have a few to choose from as well in future videos, so don't worry about it. On a side note, Killing Floor 2 is also on sale for 80% discount at the price of £4.99. So if you want a 2D one that's not for VR, you might want to take a look at that one instead. And the final game I have for you is my star buy, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition. It was released in 2016, so it's 9 years old, and it's on an 80% discount for the price of £6.99, which is not the cheapest I've ever seen it, but it's been 4 years since it was last at this price, because if you followed this channel for a long time, I was telling everyone to buy the complete Game of the Year edition on PS4, because they promised to give you the PS5 version for free. Anyone that did it like I did got the game at this price a long time ago. Anyone else? I've been waiting 4 years for it to be on this price again, because I'm no way am I recommending it when it used to be way cheaper. But now, 4 years later, it finally has. That's why it's the star buy. It's about time it hit this price again. And this version includes all 16 DLCs and 2 full expansion packs, plus the PS5 version now, with all of the content and graphical upgrades included, which is great. With this bundle, you can finally get the lot at the same price we all did way back when if you followed this channel. You're welcome. In this RPG, you get to become a monster slayer for hire and embark on a journey to find the Child of Prophecy, who is said to be the living weapon of untold destruction. Now, this series is pretty legendary and most people have heard of it, if for no other reason than they watched the Netflix series, which anyone that likes the games or even the books didn't like the series that much, and that's why Cavill left, but that's a whole other thing to moan about. This is a really big RPG series, and in the West we don't have a lot of good ones these days, and this is pretty much one of the biggest ones in the last decade. Now, unfortunately, the first 2 games are hard to play on console. You more or less have to pick them up on PC. And if you do, look at GOG, which is a really good PC game buying website where there's no DRM. And it's owned by CD Projekt Red, so you'll get these games real cheap if you buy them on there. Usually they're like £2 or something. And they'll run on anything these days as well. But aside from that, if you don't mind about playing the older games or want the backstory in more detail, don't read the books if you're thinking that. The books and the games are separate time periods from my understanding, so they're not directly related. Stick with the games if that's what you're interested in. Either way, this is a really good quality game, with a load of content included, and there's a reason why it's so highly thought of. It's above and beyond almost any other RPG released. Forget about Veilguard and all the other rubbish ones that have come out lately. This is how you do RPGs properly. It's got amazing storytelling, amazing gameplay, a really cool world with a good storyline. There's nothing else you can ask for, really. It's just a shame they haven't remastered the first two for console release. They really should do that at some point. It'd be easy money, it'd be an easy cash in. I don't get why they haven't. So if you're a big fan of RPGs and you've never played the Witcher series, then why not pick this up? It's a really good deal with a ton of content and it deserves the praise. It's such good quality. Like I said, it's my star buy. It's well worth your time and money, I promise. So definitely take a look at it. And hey, if you've never played an RPG before, then you could definitely start here. Yeah, it's in the middle of a franchise, but it's a really big game from a huge series that's really well loved and is pretty modern as well. Can't ask for much more for this money, so why not check it out if you like the look of it? I'm sure you'll love it. And that's all the games I have for the Critics' Choice PSN sale. What did you think of the games I picked? Did I pick good ones or did I pick bad ones? And what about the star buy? Did it deserve it? Or should some other game have got it instead? Leave all your comments below and we can talk about it later. Anyway, I hope you found some really cool games to play, but more importantly I hope you saved a lot of money. I'll see you guys in the next sale. Hoil Vour.